Hello, I'm Tom Wolfe, and I'm here at the John Weber Gallery where a show of the work of Hans Haacke has opened and will be here until February 5th. The show consists primarily of blow-ups of documents put out by major corporations in the United States, and the main theme of the show, I think, is observing and making the spectator aware of how large corporations are using art, supporting art in the United States, primarily as a vehicle for good public relations. Over and over again, the advertisements by these corporations expound on this theme, as you can perhaps see here on this Hans Haacke piece, which takes an ad from Allied Chemical, which talks very praisingly about big businesses' support of the arts and links that support to the importance of making big profits. The second panel is Hans Haacke's own analysis of the profits Allied Chemical made in 1975. It shows how Allied Chemical made over $116 million of profits and how they invested of that profit 0.08% in the arts. Now I'd like you to meet Hans Haacke, and I would like to begin by asking Hans if he thinks that my just short summary of the main thrust of the show is an accurate one, or if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Well, it certainly has emphasized one major aspect of this exhibition. The exhibition's title is The Goodwill Umbrella. The Goodwill Umbrella, this phrase is directly taken from a speech that the Mobile Public Relations Officer Raymond Argenio used in order to characterize his corporation's appeal to the general public by way of cultural support.
Yeah, and that speech, I should add, constitutes one of the major pieces in the show, which you'll be seeing later on. It's one wall that's devoted to the reproduction of that piece under the mobile insignia, with certain excerpts from that speech put above. Now, to begin with some questions, I'd say the first and major question in my mind is why do you consider these works of art as opposed to documents about art and the art world system?
A document is something else. A document is not concerned about presentation. A document is not interested in form. I have made a considerable number of formal decisions, which I presume is one aspect of what we normally call art.
Yeah, I see, because I have something available from the gallery which is basically a Xerox facsimile of the show, and I know that there are some artists who would believe that reading the facsimile would be just as valid as seeing the show because the ideas are received. But you don't feel that way. You think that the actual visual layout of the show is as essential as its intellectual content.
I don't want to denigrate the Xerox copy that is available to anybody who walks in here at nominal cost, but it is not the same thing as what is on the wall. What you have on the wall has color. The Xerox copy has no color. What you see on the wall is made out of a very particular material with a very particular texture, namely plastic, and plastic has refers to, among other things, to the material with which Mobil and some other corporations approach the public. The Mobil gas station sign is made out of the same material as the panels that I have here on the wall.
This is silkscreen on plastic?
This is silkscreen on plastic,
yeah.
Which probably is the same process that has been used to put out most of the large public relations, or for that matter, the logo of the gas station sign and other images that corporations use when they confront the public.
So you then consider yourself a visual artist. You're still working in the context of visual art. You consider yourself a visual artist.
Well, the things that are on the wall here have been considered to belong to the visual arts. I'm not an authority to say that they are or they aren't. That is something that I imagine is dependent on the general consensus of people. It has been accepted in the art context.
Yeah.
The works have been shown at the Venice Biennale. They are now being shown here at 420 West Broadway, which is known as an art gallery building. They have been shown somewhere else, again in an art context. So
yeah, well, so then your relationship to whether or not they're visual art is pretty much a passive one. In other words, you're not saying it is or it isn't. You're letting it be decided. And
I don't think if you really look at it from a sociological or philosophical point of view, this is something that one can decide. It is decided for you.
Okay, now we're standing in front of another Hans Haacke piece about Chase Manhattan Bank that I think kind of ironically refers to much contemporary art. There's a Vasarely in the picture, painting by Vasarely in the picture behind David Rockefeller, and the shaped geometrical format that kind of parodies Frank Stella. But in the core of the image, we have again a pious statement by David Rockefeller about the importance of public relations. Again, I think pretty much the dominating theme of Hans Haacke's show. Now, what I'd like to ask you is that I've been familiar with your work and your career for quite a while. I know I've seen, for example, a sculpture made out of ice, a freezing coil with ice around it, and works like that that are very sculptural and relate to certain kind of processes that you've recreated in the gallery. And then I know your more recent work, which deals a lot more with art and the art context, and also with kind of directly socio-political issues. Somewhere along there I missed the transition. When did you move, how did you move from doing things that are much more three-dimensional sculptural to works that have a much more overt socio-political frame of reference? And also, I'd be interested in knowing what kind of connection you see between the two.
The actual shift took place somewhere in the late 60s. And looking back, I believe there were two things that influenced such a direction. One was I was very interested in systems theory, general systems theory, which briefly summarized a few of the aspects that interested me were that in systems theory things are not viewed as an accumulation, an addition of elements, but as an organized whole where each element influences each other, so that we have something that is interdependent and interactive.
Here we're standing now in front of one of the panels of the Mobil Oil piece, the speech made by the public relations manager of Mobil Oil, which is very self-congratulatory, and that involves a lot of discussion about how Mobil Oil does use art and artists for bettering their public image and bettering their public relations. And it also mentions how 13 artists, major American artists, were commissioned by Mobil Oil to represent America in a way that is somewhat analogous, Hans Haacke points out, to the what's discussed in an article he also reproduces, to the way that they encourage art contests in Ghana and other countries where they have major holdings, again to increase their image there and to promote their public relations. Now, your main focus here is not so much the artist as the whole process, if I'm correct, the process of using art. One of the things that strikes me about all these pieces is nowhere do I see any real interest in art per se. It's only art as a kind of tool for the public relations.
Well, I believe it is clear that the corporations that do fund some cultural activities are not really interested in the kind of cultural activity that they are supporting, as long as it is doing the job for them. That is to say that their image is being polished and that they get an entree with the liberal community, which is most likely the one that would be critical.
Now, it seems to me that from my limited knowledge of the situation, that art in its long history, has always had a rather dubious patronage. It's never had what would be considered an ideal group of enlightened and disinterested individuals who are just interested in art for art's sake, unless they were members of a very privileged class. And I was wondering, do you have any kind of alternative ideal that would be, in your mind, a more preferable kind of patronage for art and art products?
I have no blueprint for the future.
Yeah.
I sort of take stock of what is going on, and in one way or another, I believe art, as long as it depends on funds for its production as well as its dissemination, will, to a considerable degree, reflect the views, not directly but indirectly, of those who provide the funds.
Yeah, which brings me to another interesting issue in terms of your work, which is that it seems to me that it's not very marketable, since it's kind of flying in the face of the people who supply a lot of the funds for art. Is that the situation as you've encountered it?
What is probably less marketable than other works, but I think it would be wrong to present the situation as monolithic, totally hostile. The art world, and meaning museums, critics, collectors, artists themselves, and so forth, are varied enough to leave small niches open. Something that would not be accepted in a museum here in New York could still be shown somewhere else in the United States or in Europe. That getting into an art magazine reevaluates it and potentially pushes it into an opening where there would be no opening before. So it is a juggling act.
Yeah, I see.
And there have been people who have bought the kinds of things that I'm doing.
Now, something else about the kinds of things that you're doing, I think that they make a strong and individual statement with their area of interest and with the kind of information that they're making visible. I was wondering, though, if you feel kinship with any other contemporary artists who you feel are working in a similar direction or exploring similar concerns.
Well, there are a number. One who immediately comes to mind and geographically is very close at the moment. That's Victor Bergen, who is showing with me here. I very much like his work, and I believe in many ways we are traveling on the same wavelengths, although the means that we use are different.
Yeah, well, one interesting connection between the two shows to me is the concern with advertising, which does seem to be more and more in this kind of art perceived to be a basic fact of modern life.
Well, advertising is is one of the major vehicles through which we are imbued with the prevailing ideology, let's put it this way, as a brief term. And different ways I'm doing is maybe unveiling what that ideology actually is that is being handed on to us in each television program, in each ad.
Yeah.
And not only there, all over, we are just surrounded totally by it. This is our environment.